1045 The Team, 1045theteam.com. Special shows here, Capital Region Sports Saturday. We got myself, we got Zach By. We're doing a special show later this afternoon from 4 to 6 p.m. as well. And we were on the phone with Clint Jackson, Rivals.com, really knee-deep into college basketball recruiting, knee-deep into the ACC. Andrew Platek, former Guilderland High School star. He leaves, he goes to prep school. Last we saw him, Clint, we knew he was a Division I player. Now he's getting offers from North Carolina 1 year later. Where did that come from?
I'll tell you what, it goes to show you a lot when you have a kid that size who can shoot the ball as well as he can, that the high majors are willing to look at kids like that, because oftentimes a lot of these high major schools like North Carolina, they lose games to schools like Butler, and all the fans are on the board saying, why can't we get some kids like that? Well, here's a kid like that.
Well, it's interesting because I actually heard Platek visited Butler as well, so it kind of speaks to what you're saying here. Clint, let me ask you a question. We know how good of a shooter that Andrew Platek is. That is his 1A skill set. What else does he bring to the table that has convinced Roy Williams that he could play for the Tar Heels?
Well, that's a really good question. I mean, I think he's got a few of them. One, he's very crafty. He's very tough. He's got good size. He's 6'4", 6'4.5" for a shooting guard. And he embraces defending the other team's best player. So he's not a one-trick pony. I think that's what the UNC staff really likes about him.
Clint, you haven't seen Andrew play yet this year on the EYBL circuit, but you did see him play last year. You're going to see him play in about the next 2 weeks as the EYBL circuit comes to your neighborhood in Virginia. What did you see from him last year that he needs to improve on that you're hoping to see that he has improved on this year?
Well, that's a good question. Last year I watched him because, we had all the Kevin Herter mania, and I was part of that because I love that kid. And, while I was watching Herter, there was the other kid out there who I was like, well, that kid's pretty good, too. He was a year behind Kevin. But, we saw a guy that had good size and he could shoot. And actually, with a running start, he could get above the rim. I think just, being keyed on, when you're about the fifth or sixth best player on a team, and I'm not saying he was, but when you're not keyed on, it's easier to go off. When you are keyed on and the other team is focused on stopping you, how well do you play, under that, that scenario? So I think that's what I really look for this year. But, everybody loves him. He's shooting 54% from three-point range. And when you put a kid like that, and I'm not saying if he were to play at Carolina or Indiana or somewhere, that he would be a star, but I do see him as a 4-year program player. And if you surround him with the right pieces, being guys who can penetrate and kick and, big men who can score, and you leave a guy like that in space, he can kill you.
Clint, another question I have, it's kind of, begging here. How does a 19-year-old kid say no to Roy Williams and going to play at North Carolina?
A lot of them have, but again, a lot of them have, committed to UNC. But I think that, the one thing I noticed when talking to Andrew or interviewing him or hearing an interview with someone else is there's definitely a lot of, he's very fond of the program. He gets excited. There's a lot of kids out there that we interview them. They just give you the canned answers, the media speak. This kid doesn't hide his emotions about UNC. It's a big offer for him. It's a very big deal. So, I think, one thing I take away from him is academics is going to be a really big part of this equation for him, and also seeing how he fits in with a guy. So I do see UNC having an excellent chance with Platek if they were to push and, keep pushing and try to get him on campus. But, I think he's really going to be careful with his decision and make sure it's not an emotional one.
Clint Jackson, Rivals.com, knows everything about college basketball recruiting, especially when it comes to the ACC. And Zach and I were talking before the interview started, and Clint, my biggest concern with Platek when we saw him a year ago was he didn't really like to go to the hoop too much. He liked to just float around the perimeter and shoot the three ball because he was so good at it. And that kind of reminded us of J.J. Redick early on in his college career. Do you think he projects to be that kind of player who is just going to be a you drive and then kick it to me and I don't have to worry about going to the hoop?
I mean, he could be. I mean, right now I agree 100% with you guys. He's definitely a guy who doesn't like to take it to the hole because he's not as quick as some other guys. So, I don't think you'll ever see him reach 5-star status with Rivals.com, but, he's probably a legitimate 4-star kid. Eric Bossy would probably be better to answer that question than I do because he does the national rankings. But, he could be a specialist at the next level being a shooter. But I do think that by continuing to hone his handle, get as quick as he can, as lean as he can so he can move his speed a little better, he'll get people to respect him so that they do sag off of him. And when they do sag off of him, his jumper is just money.
Clint Jackson, Rivals.com. You talked about Kevin Herter. You said you loved him. I remember talking to you about him 1 year ago. He ends up at Maryland. Were you surprised that he didn't get an offer from a Duke or from a UNC?
I think I do know UNC watched him. I don't think Duke was in the market for another kid at that position because they had a couple other kids coming in. But UNC did look at him. I don't know if he played extremely well in front of the UNC staff, but I think if they had got to see him maybe one more time, they probably would have saw what I saw with Kevin Herter. But obviously some other schools did see it and they moved quicker and they got him on campus. And Maryland won his heart, so he ended up going there, and I think it's a really good fit for him.
Clint Jackson, Rivals.com. We're going to be monitoring this Andrew Platek to North Carolina possibility throughout the next weeks and months if it materializes to be that long and drawn out of a recruiting process. Clint, we appreciate the time. Thanks for being with us.
Thanks, guys.